Trump, V Starmer. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. The last few days have certainly been interesting with regard to the politics and statesmanship of various interactions between various leaders and other people. We have had Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, meeting with Donald Trump, the President of the United States. We have had the meeting between Volodymyr Zelensky, the President of Ukraine, and President Trump and Vice President Vance. We have also had Starmer meeting with various heads of state from around Europe and Zelensky meeting King Charles III. Not only has this been very interesting with regard to the political ramifications vis-à-vis war in Ukraine and the ongoing dispute with Russia, the opportunities to seek peace and do a deal for people to vent their views with regard to how they see the situation, but it also provides me with an excellent opportunity to explain to you various aspects of the narcissistic dynamic. Now, I make clear, because there still remain certain individuals that get their panties in a bunch because they're not paying attention and proving quite possibly that they're hard of understanding, that this isn't about me making political observations. This isn't the purpose of this channel. The purpose of this is to take narcissists that come from all different walks of life, many in entertainment, some in law enforcement, some in sport, and many also in politics, to explain to you that those hunting grounds attract lots of narcissists because they cater very effectively to the prime aims. It also provides opportunities to understand and explain why certain people behave the way they do, i.e. because of their narcissism, and also provides opportunities to explain what's going on when two narcissists are involved with one another. Accordingly, what I explain is simply about the narcissistic dynamic. You can form your own view about whether you think that such behaviour was appropriate or not. I'm just going to describe what went on. Of considerable interest, of course, was the interaction that took place between Zelensky, Trump and Vance. I'll be coming to that in due course. But I'm going to start with Keir Starmer, because what he actually did was demonstrate a useful handling of Donald Trump, which enabled Starmer to get considerable praise from the press, which has often criticised him. Starmer has numerous faults, and I don't need to list what all of them are. But in this instance, credit ought to be given to him that he demonstrated a sensible approach to dealing with Trump. Now, it's likely the case that Starmer doesn't necessarily understand that Trump is a narcissist and what that means. He will, of course, be advised as to his character and will have seen other times the way that he has been behaving. And with these situations, a ton of diplomacy goes on behind the scenes prior to the actual meetings. But nevertheless, the contrast between how things went when Starmer and Trump met up compared to when there was the meeting with Zelensky demonstrates that the approach of Starmer was one where, in effect, he played the straight man in the daily Donald Trump talk show, and did so in a way which enabled Donald Trump to have the maintenance of control over Starmer, whilst ensuring that Starmer was portrayed in a good light and enabled him to get the things that mattered to him. And I'm going to explain to you, utilising a report from The Times written by Will Pavia, as to how he went about that. President Trump sat forward in his chair talking about British military victories. Now, whatever you might think about the United Kingdom, one of them is that we had the largest empire the world has ever known, and we are pretty good as a warlike nation. You've done very well over the years, haven't you? He said to Keir Starmer, as if they were discussing a football team. We have, Starmer said, blushing. Accordingly, Trump starts off with some flattery, with "you have done very well over the years, haven't you?" Starmer, rather than shy away from it, simply offers agreement, demonstrating that he's under control and providing pure positive fuel to Trump. It was another edition of Trump's now near daily afternoon show, live from the Oval Office, in which he shoots the breeze with a foreign leader about Ukraine or the Middle East or President Putin or who would win a war between Britain and Russia. Like many politicians, Trump, of course, loves the limelight. As the narcissist that he is, this enables him a platform to assert control over millions, if not hundreds of millions of people around the globe and draw the requisite amount of fuel from them also. By getting into the office of president, but also offering the transparency of his news announcements and meetings, this enables him a greater method of gaining those prime aims. Now, some of you will say, well, he does it for other reasons as well, but understand that's still underpinned by his narcissism. So if, for instance, you say, well, he does this because he wants to be transparent about his dealings, no, the transparency is secondary to the need for control and the receipt of fuel. It certainly serves a purpose, it would come under as a residual benefit, but it's not the primary driver of his behaviour. Thursday's guest was Starmer. What did he have to say for himself? Not much. Starmer, of course, recognised and had been briefed to allow the floor to Donald Trump, to not interrupt him, to not talk over him, and to allow him to be the one that's able to speak the most. Starmer sat with his legs crossed, leaning against one of the arms of his chair. "Do you want to say something?" Trump asked him at one point. This allows Trump to look generous in terms of offering him the floor, that Trump hasn't felt that he's being talked down to or at, something that you'll see is a contrast with what went on with Vladimir Zelensky. But for the most part, the Prime Minister hovered, metaphorically speaking, at the side of the stage, like the straight man in an American late-night talk show who was also in the band. He was there, certainly, but this was the Trump show. And Starmer knew and understood, you see, that he had to ensure that it was always the Trump show. That he had to ensure that he was the one that was seen. And so long as Starmer was able to come away with what he required, he was perfectly happy to allow Trump to be the main man. Trump's previous guest had been President Macron of France, and there were suggestions that the British and French leaders were working together to try to talk Trump into greater security guarantees for Ukraine in any peace deal, one after the other, tag-teaming like wrestlers. First came the elfin Frenchman, with his arsenal of special handshakes and his dazzling monologues in a baffling language that Trump refers to as the French deal. Then, into the ring of the Oval Office leapt Starmer, a stodgier warrior, in his Penfold glasses. Now, Starmer has understood, allow Trump to be Trump, allow Trump to have the floor, allow Trump to be the ringmaster and the showman. But what he did was cater to the narcissist's need for shiny things, for attractive, glittery things. And he had in his hands a letter from His Majesty the King. He said, "He asked me to bear this to you." Now, Starmer knows that Trump is a big fan of the royal family and that he loves to play on his mother's Scottish connections also. Accordingly, knowing that Trump favours the royal family, Starmer had utilised himself as a vessel for a conveyance of a letter from King Charles. This is Starmer, who's the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, one of the wealthiest nations in the world that is on the UN Security Council, and whilst it doesn't have the role that it once had in world affairs, it still is regarded as a significant player. Nevertheless, he was content to take on the role as message bearer, because he knew that this would allow him to be viewed favourably by Trump. He then handed the letter, and Trump asked, "Am I supposed to read it right now?" There was silence as Trump bent over the letter, giving the cameras a rare view of the complicated weft and warp of the golden hair where it is thatched over his bald spot. "Oh," he said after a while, "that's wow. Well, that is really nice." He favours the royal family. He's spoken well about the king. He receives a personal letter that is signed by the king, inviting him on an unprecedented second state visit. This naturally panders to Trump's ego. It comes from something that he has an interest in, the British royal family. It's personally signed, demonstrating that this isn't just some generic round robin that's sent out, but that it's been specifically created for him, the almighty President Trump. And it also contains the invitation to attend a second state visit. All of these things flatter Trump, and by association Starmer, because he is the one that has personally hand-delivered this letter. Trump peeled the top page from the bottom, like a boy who has received a birthday card from an aunt and wants to know if there is any money inside. "I must make sure his signature is on that," he said, "otherwise it's not quite as meaningful." It was. "And that's quite a signature, isn't it?" Trump said. "Beautiful." It was large and black. It almost looked as if the king, in the interest of diplomacy, had used a black felt-tip pen of the kind that Trump himself favours. The letter invited Trump for a second state visit to Britain. "This is really special," Starmer said. "This has never happened before. This is unprecedented." More flattery. Not out-and-out ass-kissing, but flattery towards Trump, which demonstrates that Starmer is under control, that he is no threat to control, and is providing him with pure positive fuel. And he comes with a lovely, shiny, glistening gift, the type that Donald Trump wants. Never before in the field of human invitations for state visits had so many been extended to so few. "That just symbolises the bond between us," Starmer declared. "This is truly historic." He added that it was unprecedented. "That says at Windsor," Trump said. "Yes," Starmer said. "What I haven't got is your answer yet." Trump said he and his wife Melania would be delighted to come along. He responds favourably to the invitation. Then he began fielding questions on all manner of subjects: tariffs, the EU, his good relationship with Putin, the rare earth minerals in Ukraine. "We are going to be there, digging our hearts out," he said, leaning forward in his armchair, again dominating the conversation as his style, while Starmer hunched up at the side of his, again knowing to allow Trump the main role, not to try and dominate the proceedings himself. Starmer managed to say that any peace deal should ensure Ukraine's security, and once he even managed to correct Trump's claim that all the aid Britain had given to Kyiv it would get back, but otherwise it was rather hard for him to get a word in, which of course he would not find a problem, because his role was to go there and to ensure that Trump was always the one that shone. Trump said Britain did not need American military support. "If they need help, I will always be with the British," he said. "Come here," he said to Starmer, rather affectionately, and the two men gripped hands. Physical assertion of control, and demonstrating that it's within his gift to say, "I will be with the British." Starmer's actions have caused him and the UK to then be viewed favourably by coming with this letter from the King and by not threatening Trump's need for control. He has played this rather well. "This is the greatest alliance the world has ever seen," Starmer said, getting in a few more words. "Could you take Russia by yourself?" Trump asked, casually knocking him back to the canvas. Provocation. "Well," Starmer said, Overall, this worked very well for Starmer. The British press that I've read spoke in favourable terms, often from sources that would be quick to criticise him. But they recognised that this meeting was one where he understood the assignment in terms of how to deal with Trump. And certainly Trump came out of it smiling. And that it was a useful meeting in terms of what it portrayed and what was discussed. This demonstrates that in certain circumstances where it is necessary to have an involvement with the narcissist, and in this case Starmer did have to, that there are instances where pandering to the ego of the narcissist, coming bearing gifts, making them feel special, will work in your favour. I explained many occasions, particularly for those who have a personal involvement with the narcissist. Here, Starmer's involvement is professional. But where you have a personal involvement with the narcissist, the most effective thing you can ever do is to know that you're dealing with the narcissist and then to apply the principle of go so, get out and stay out. The reason being is That where you have an intimate, personal or familial relationship with the narcissist, you are much more likely to be painted black, which means even if you come bearing gifts, they would still be seen through the lens of you being painted black and would backfire. Where there is a more arm's length relationship, as is the case here, Starmer is painted white and, rather than antagonize Trump, rather than threaten his need for control, he allows him to be the showman, he allows him to run the press conference, and he comes bearing gifts. All of this works in his favour and results in not only a successful exchange with Trump, but also praise thereafter for Starmer in the way that he handled the meeting. Something, of course, which is a considerable contrast to what happened with Vladimir Zelensky, which I'll be analysing separately. Starmer wasn't subjected to any of the bullying behaviour that is typical of the upper lesser type B narcissist that Trump is. He wasn't subjected to his belligerent behaviour. What he got was a narcissist that was pleased with what was brought to him, like a monarch receiving gifts, who therefore then looks favourably upon the supplicant. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.